They said it would never happen, that the outcry was too intense, the frustration too widespread, for any studio to risk a second season. Yet, against all odds, The Beginning After the End is returning in 2026, reanimating a debate that seemed closed for good. Critics raged that the show's first episodes boasted some of the most lackluster action sequences the anime world had ever witnessed, and many fans were convinced the story they loved so dearly in manhwa form had been utterly lost in translation. Still, here we are, on the brink of a new start for an adaptation that arrived with enormous promise, but quickly drew scorn from all corners of the anime community. Today, we are going to unravel every dusty, dramatic layer of this saga, from the glorious fervor of manhwa-inspired hype to the outcry that reached a boiling point with over 50,000 signatures demanding the show's immediate reboot. Get ready for a head-spinning journey into the surprising comeback of an underdog series. What exactly went wrong the first time around? How could something that soared so high fall so quickly into the labyrinth of fan disappointment? And most importantly, what does this second season promise that could finally elevate The Beginning After the End to the heights fans believe it deserves? In this in-depth exploration, we will retrace the bizarre arc of a series that launched with cheers, ended with jeers, and then rose once more, proving that even the most hard-hitting fan backlash can sometimes transform a production's destiny. In the opening weeks of its run, The Beginning After the End stood tall as the next potential landmark in manhwa adaptations. Following in the footsteps of massive hits like Solo Leveling, Tower of God, and Lookism, it carried the torch for South Korea's phenomenal surge in global popularity, a wave that had already persuaded countless anime enthusiasts to embrace manhwa stories. With an isekai premise, though far from unfamiliar, The Beginning After the End still had its own spark. The saga of King Gray, an individual reborn into a magical realm where swords, spells, and magical creatures collide. Audiences initially appeared thrilled to see how the anime would depict the layers of political intrigue, personal growth, and resonant relationships that made the manhwa so engaging. Yet, excitement turned into exasperation with shocking speed. By the time Episode 1 had unveiled its first real battle sequence, social media was buzzing with phrases like barely animated, disappointingly static, and shockingly dull. Viewers complained that the original charm of the manhwa, especially its brisk, lively fight choreography, had evaporated into the laziest brand of anime adaptation. Fate had apparently dealt a cruel hand, relegating The Beginning After the End to a corner of comedic mockery rather than catapulting it into the realm of widespread acclaim. And then came the petitions. When a show's opening episodes trigger not just mild complaints, but a riled-up petition, you know a line has been crossed. Some outraged fans drew parallels to the fiasco surrounding the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie back in 2019, during which Paramount recalibrated Sonic's design after negative feedback. Could something similar happen for The Beginning After the End? The petition soared to tens of thousands of signatures in a flash, over 50,000 at last count, asking the studio to redo the entire adaptation from scratch. Even that phenomenon might have been overshadowed, if not for the near-complete meltdown on online forums, where once hopeful subscribers to the largest anime streaming services began posting scathing comments, urging others to abandon the show immediately. How does a production bounce back from such fervent discontent? This is exactly the crossroads The Beginning After the End found itself facing. Even though it started with the backing of Crunchyroll, a platform that seldom invests in an adaptation without seeing its potential, the negative wave took on a life of its own. Mired in episodes that were roundly criticized for subpar visuals and choppy pacing, the title seemed to shrink into the shadows. Most telling of all, perhaps, was the dwindling wave of social media conversation around the show after the initial uproar. Season 1 concluded, and the general consensus seemed to be that the anime had flopped. Little did anyone suspect that behind the scenes, multiple factors were stirring a second chance. That second chance indeed arrived in the form of a stunning announcement. Season 2 would be hitting Crunchyroll in 2026. Almost immediately, speculation ran wild. Was the production team prepared to innovate and change course in the face of near-universal condemnation? Or would these future episodes simply be repackaged remnants of a failing formula? And perhaps the bigger question was, why would a series that had fallen so far from grace be picked up for another run in the first place? Industry insiders offered a few plausible theories. First, animation behemoth studio ACAT might have concluded that a correction, or at the very least a subdued improvement, could salvage the show's reputation. The second possibility hinged on the timing of anime productions in general. It is not uncommon for a series to have part of its next season in pre-production well before the first season even airs. So, if the wheels for Season 2 were set in motion long before fans erupted in outrage, reversing course might have proven too complicated or costly. Either scenario would explain why Crunchyroll, despite the negative press, moved ahead and confirmed the new season. But let us dial back to what drew so many eyes in the first place. The beginning after the end is no mere rehash of the standard isekai blueprint. Yes, it has the fundamental hallmark of a hero reborn into a fantasy realm filled with arcane magic and towering beasts. What sets it apart, however, is the emotional and psychological angle that the manhwa underscored. The protagonist, once an all-powerful king, must grapple with forging genuine relationships and acknowledging the mistakes that defined his past life. The story, on paper, merges classical shonen elements, like personal growth through repeated trials, with more serious contemplations on monarchy, destiny, and the value of forging real bonds with mentors and friends. That dimension gave readers hope that the anime adaptation would be a thought-provoking thrill ride. Countless supporters of the show, or at least of its source material, lamented that what ended up on screen felt half-baked. The nuance and gravitas from the manhwa's pages were overshadowed by awkward pacing, overshadowing major plot points and skipping essential world-building moments. Characters who thrived in the manhwa, brimming with personality and charm, seemed stuck in stiffly executed movements, rarely doing more than trading simplistic lines and serving up formulaic battles. Given the fan clamor for powerful and visually exciting fight choreography, the dullness came off as a betrayal. Semi-professional animators and casual viewers alike tore apart the show's technical weaknesses. Some pointed out limited keyframes and background art that often felt generic or copy-pasted from still concept images. Budget constraints were a popular theory, while others ventured that a lack of creative passion from the production staff was to blame. Regardless, there is one truth that cannot be denied. The beginning after the end arrived to towering expectations, yet delivered a final product that practically no one was pleased with. Even so, the property's underlying potential lingered in the background, quietly compelling studio executives to wonder if they could leverage the source material's popularity again under different circumstances. Let us not forget the broader context. Manhwa-based titles have lately become goldmines for the anime market. Solo Leveling, with its unstoppable protagonist and stylish visuals, set a gold standard by captivating millions worldwide, while Tower of God emerged with breathless hype and lookism turned heads with its comedic premise. The Boxer, yet another manhwa to anime adaptation, drew interest for its gritty storytelling. For better or worse, the momentum behind these comics from South Korea, combined with the existing mania for the isekai genre, made The Beginning After the End appear like a surefire success. It is no wonder the heartbreak was so acute when the adaptation did not rise to the level fans had dreamed of. Nor is it surprising that studios in search of the next big thing might be determined to give The Beginning After the End another run. But is it truly possible that Season 2 can resurrect the show's battered reputation? That is where things get particularly interesting, because we stand at a crossroads of speculation and hope. If, in fact, much of the second season was already in development before the first season even debuted, that might suggest a certain rigidity, but it could also indicate that the creative minds behind the scenes had a longer-term plan, one that might only come into its own in these later arcs. While we cannot dismiss the possibility of repeated shortcomings, the fact that so many fans are still discussing the show, after all these months, is evidence that the story's core premise continues to bait curiosity. One question surfaces time and again. Can the animation quality truly improve, or is the new season doomed to replicate the colossal missteps of Season 1? For all of the negativity swirling around, some fans insist that the visual fiasco overshadowed a handful of heartfelt moments and interesting narrative twists that the anime was still able to explore. If the production studio can amplify these redeeming qualities, reinforcing the emotional arcs, polishing the fight scenes, and investing in more fluid character animation, then perhaps The Beginning After the End can finally do justice to its beloved source material. It is precisely this tension between unabashed cynicism and cautious optimism that fuels the series' continuing spotlight. Now, if you are intrigued by the idea that even the most widely lambasted anime can earn a chance at redemption, consider hitting that subscribe button to stay updated on all the twists and turns in this fascinating production saga. After all, no fantasy epic is quite complete without a shocking second act. Let us time travel momentarily to the day that news first broke about the show's renewal. Online forums erupted, with half the crowd decrying the announcement as a fool's errand, and the other half clinging to a faint hope that the producers might pull off a massive turnaround. Parallels were drawn to anime that overcame shaky beginnings, though examples of that magnitude are scarce. The internet collectively scratched its head, trying to decipher whether the power of brand recognition alone could keep a floundering show afloat. It felt like a case study in real time. Would the negativity from Season 1 overshadow any attempt at rebranding? Or would the mere promise of improvement be enough for fans to give it another shot? Among the more hopeful voices, certain fans pointed out that the kernel of a great story remained intact. They argued that with the right injection of budget, time, and talent, The Beginning After the End could match, and perhaps even surpass, some of the more successful manhwa-based adaptations. These dedicated supporters championed the idea that the next wave of episodes could flesh out crucial arcs from the original narrative, giving them the dynamic flow, emotional resonance, and crackling animation that they deserve from the start. If that proved to be the case, then the show might swiftly transform from an object of scorn into an emblem of how creative teams can learn from and respond to viewer feedback. Of course, that bridging of expectations and reality is far from guaranteed. Many remain skeptical, taking to social media and proclaiming that no second season can rescue a first impression as disastrous as what they witnessed. Yet even these skeptics exhibit a gnawing curiosity. They cannot resist the impulse to check updates, devour rumors about new animators or directors, and weigh the possibility that Crunchyroll might funnel a more substantial budget into the project this time around. This swirl of conflicting attitudes only raises the show's profile further, spurring the studios behind the scenes to navigate a maze of hype, caution, and intense scrutiny. Also, it is not as though The Beginning After the End is the first series to encounter adversity. The history of anime is littered with occasional fiascos, projects that underperformed, disappointed, or even enraged fans, only to surprise everyone later with a creative or technical renaissance. After all, the original Neon Genesis Evangelion had modest beginnings and overcame a plethora of production headaches, which ironically paved the way for its lasting success. While we should not equate The Beginning After the End with an industry-defining classic, it is worth remembering that fandom can be forgiving when studios show they have learned from past mistakes. One of the big mysteries is how the staff will reorganize its production pipeline to avoid repeating earlier catastrophes. Will new animators come on board, armed with fresh zeal and the technical prowess to elevate the show? The petition fiasco proved one thing. Fans crave a version of Arthur, the show's protagonist in his new life, that leaps off the screen with the same brio he displayed in the manhwa. But getting there means refining everything from fight choreography, ensuring it is dynamic, powerful, and fluid, to the more understated character animations that convey subtle expressions of awe, ambition, and heartbreak. In the manhwa, these elements took their time to blossom, illustrating Arthur's growth in a manner that felt organic. Translating this nuance into an anime format, especially in a second season weighed down by tarnished reputation, will require remarkable effort. All eyes are on the overarching isekai narrative as well. Although The Beginning After the End is by no means the only current isekai story, its premise of a king's reincarnation and subsequent humble re-education in magic academies offered the possibility of introspection seldom seen in the genre. Fans originally believed they would witness a deeply layered transformation, a person who once had everything in one life, forced to rediscover identity, independence, and fragile relationships in another life. Adapting this subtle evolution effectively to the screen can be an incredibly tall order if the writing and direction do not sync perfectly. Season 1's pacing issues, with entire subplots crammed into brief flashbacks or overshadowed by tepid battles, signaled that something fell apart in the creative pipeline. Now, with a second season announced, Fans are hoping the creative team invests more care and attention into the heart of the story. We also have to consider how other manhwa-based titles might shape the fate of The Beginning After the End. Should Solo Leveling, or Tower of God, release major new arcs around the same time, competition for the same audience's attention will be fierce. That could either overshadow The Beginning After the End once again, or encourage a newly emboldened production to exceed expectations so it can stand proudly beside the biggest hits in the manhwa to anime sphere. Crunchyroll is well aware that such synergy can be a double-edged sword. While multiple manhwa adaptations can help draw bigger collective audiences, they can also shine a harsh spotlight on whichever series lags behind in quality. Therefore, from a strategic standpoint, if The Beginning After the End truly hopes for redemption, it will have to deliver dynamic storytelling and mesmerizing visuals that place it on par with its new wave siblings. Throughout these challenges, one thing remains consistent. Fans remain deeply invested. Whether driven by hope or cynicism, people continue to talk about the series, tune into official announcements, argue about the state of isekai as a whole, and dissect every rumor. And guess what? This conversation is far from over. If you are enjoying this deep exploration of one of the most confounding returns in recent anime memory, go ahead and give this video a like, so we can keep creating more deep dives into your favorite and not-so-favorite series. After all, the story only gets more fascinating when the stakes are high and the outcome uncertain. Now, with a brand new season looming on the horizon, we arrive at the juncture where devout loyalists and curious skeptics converge. The devout group fervently believes that 2026 will usher in a phoenix-like rebirth. Meanwhile, the skeptics await an inevitable repeat of what they term a classic example of wasted potential. The fans behind that infamous petition watch intently to see if their voices truly made an impact. Local anime conventions have begun scheduling speculative panels where experts and fans alike debate angles for the upcoming season. Will the budget be significantly larger? Will new directors incorporate cutting-edge technology that can replicate the manhwa's dynamic artistry? Will the comedic elements overshadow or complement the drama this time? Behind the scenes, we can imagine production meetings rife with tension, balancing the hopes of a battered fan base with the constraints of budgets and deadlines. Under the watchful gaze of social media, any minor slip in promotional artwork or trailer footage could reignite the rancor that nearly sank the series before. Yet that same intense spotlight might serve as motivation, pushing the team responsible to refine every detail. From perfecting the glint of a hero's sword to nailing the expressions of side characters in pivotal moments, there is no shortage of nuance to master. For an anime based on a still popular manhwa, turning a dire fiasco into a brilliant success is not impossible. Indeed, many stories in entertainment revolve around underdogs on the verge of redemption, both within fictional narratives and in real-world production cycles. The Beginning After the End now stands as a prime example that no matter how unpredictable viewer reactions can be, there is almost always room for a second act if the property has enough raw appeal and the studio possesses the grit to try again. What ultimately unfolds in 2026 is anyone's guess, but the day of the first trailer release for Season 2 is guaranteed to be a spectacle in its own right. If the footage displays a leap in animation quality, even if subtle, the chatter on social platforms could shift from mocking condemnation to cautious anticipation. Scenes of meticulously choreographed battles, bursts of vibrant magic, and faithful artistry capturing the essence of the manhwa might break through the walls of skepticism. Alternatively, if what we see is merely a retread of stiff-limbed fight scenes, fans might declare the show's swan song has already been sung. Still, the stakes have never been higher for Studio ACAT, the same company behind titles like High Speed Étoile and Transformers Energon. Should they succeed in reinventing The Beginning After the End for a second season that dazzles critics and viewers, they could rewrite the narrative of underwhelming anime adaptation. Eventually, in a new wave of conversations, fans might celebrate it as a testament to learning from missteps. For now, though, that future remains unwritten. Will The Beginning After the End reemerge victoriously, bridging the gap between manhwa brilliance and anime splendor? Or will 2026 simply echo the earlier disappointment, relegating this once hopeful series to the dustbin of half-hearted attempts? The choice rests with the production studio's dedication, the creative synergy of new or returning staff, and the unwavering devotion of a fan base that has proven surprisingly vocal when it senses a disservice to the source material. One lesson stands out from this enthralling saga. Never underestimate the passion and influence of anime and manhwa lovers. Their collective voices practically forced Paramount to refine Sonic back in 2019, and they have now catapulted The Beginning After the End into a second season purely on the wings of both reverence and outrage. The wave of petitions, social media campaigns, and breathless blog posts underscores a world in which fans refuse to be passive recipients of whatever studios decide to churn out. Instead, they are active participants, champions of quality, vigilantes of authenticity, and occasionally harsh critics. In an environment like this, the show's second season likely stands a better chance of addressing viewer demands. As we watch this story evolve, we might also glean insights into the future of manhwa-based anime as a whole. If The Beginning After the End can pull off a stunning comeback, then other borderline adaptations may take heart and realize that it is never too late to reform a flawed project. If it fails, studios might become more cautious, investing only when they can guarantee a consistently high level of production. Like Arthur discovering the magic of his new world, the creators of this show must learn how to navigate a landscape fraught with traps, whether financial, creative, or reputational. If they succeed, The Beginning After the End may stand as a demonstration of how adversity can fuel resilience. If they fail, it will cement the series as a cautionary tale, a promising gem undone by poor execution. Either direction underscores the inherent gamble of adaptation. Can a beloved text, whether manhwa or manga, truly come alive without losing the enchantment it exudes on paper? And that, dear listeners, encapsulates the extraordinary drama swirling around this embattled title. It began with lofty ambitions, crashed into a wave of disappointment, and now bides its time, hoping for a triumphant return. The battle lines are drawn between cynics who see no path to redemption and faithful fans ready to champion this story anew. Thanks for joining me on this deep descent into the saga of The Beginning After the End. Remember, it is your voices that shape these productions in more ways than you might realize. Keep that critical eye open, stay curious, and brace yourselves for a new era of magical exploration when the next season finally launches in 2026.